Well, extra briefing with Minister Robertshaw today. In fact, you did say we'd probably catch up with you this week because on Friday you couldn't say various things because you were going to say it in the House of Keys. And quite a confrontation with Mr. Horton. I mean, he certainly wants you at your job, and I think he referred to you as that dangerous man.
Well, yes, I mean, now we've had both members from North Douglas in the last month call for my resignation. What I would say to them, and they're entitled to do that, but what I would say to them is that we're now in a period of really significant change on the Isle of Man, and as I've said many, many times in the months running up to this year, that what we need is a national debate on these important subjects to engage the public in these issues so that they understand them and can start taking views on them. But just to get from the members from North Douglas misleading comments and then calling for my head, as it were, really doesn't get us anywhere. What I would invite them to do is engage with me in serious debate so people can listen to two sides of the story. What's disappointing, though, Paul, is that they come out with these snappy headlines that, you know, I'm demanding that people are paid through the bank. No, I'm not. I'm looking to have the post offices closed. No, I'm not. And then they simply ask for my head. Now, this really isn't good enough, and they've got to do better in the future. They've got to start engaging in these issues. I have not said that people must be paid through the bank.
You're trying to angle them. You're trying to maybe coax people. Would that be the best term? You're trying to move them on?
Strongly encourage people to get paid through the bank, but if they do not want to be paid through the bank, I am not going to insist that they do so.
And the post office said it's going to cost them what? Is it £900,000?
Well, there's a huge amount of money that goes out from my department to pay benefits in the traditional method through the post offices, but it's not just about child benefit. It's about the future of the post offices. And let's make this absolutely clear, if we accept John Horton's agenda, if we carry on as we are, then the sub-post offices are heading for disaster. We need to rethink and rejig the future of our sub-post offices. Now, that work is going on between ourselves and the post office at this time, and I am clear in my own mind that the post office will very soon come out with some proposals which will increase the element and level of debate required. And I do hope that Mercers, Henderson and Horton engage in this in a sensible way and stop this histrionics that they're indulging in at the moment.
But he's making it sound like you would be almost responsible for the closure of some of these post offices. And I think the public could probably see that because they, to some small communities, people going in to collect their child benefit, it's their big moment of the week. They get out, it's a social event if nothing else, and the post office is part of the community. Take that away from them and you will drive some to go out of business, right? You agree that some might have to go?
The point is that each year that goes by, the amount of benefits being paid through the post office is dropping anyway. What I've tried to do is look forward and say, what have we got to do as early as we can to make sure that we protect the future of our sub-post office outlets and services? And that's what I'm engaged in. If I do nothing, if the post office do nothing, then we're heading for a failure. Now that's not acceptable. We've got to act early and introduce policies and proposals and ideas which give a future for those outlets.
Do you accept that the form may have been a bit misleading then, that it was almost encouraging people to take that bank option, because some people obviously have got bank accounts already, but some don't, and there was a bit of concern that maybe people who haven't got bank accounts who open them might get the wrong sort, and there's quite a lot of payments involved and charges, and it could add to their problems.
Part of this process right at the outset we started out on this road simply because we saw in the UK that the sub-post offices were closing because they were no longer sustainable, and people who hadn't got bank accounts were finding themselves out on a limb. And I didn't want to see that happen over here. But I would also say that if somebody does not want to be paid through the bank, even though they have a bank account, I'm comfortable with that as long as they contact us on the number on the form as we've indicated.
And the cut-off dates, how's it gone? Do you get a lot of response back in the end after your appeal?
Not yet, no.
So it hasn't happened, still hasn't happened?
We're getting applications in more quickly now. I think that last time we spoke, I was talking about they would all be out by yesterday, Tuesday. and we'll have to measure it over the next few weeks. But could I use this opportunity once again to say to people, please, regardless of your circumstances, unless you are absolutely confident you will earn over £90,000 a year as a household, please get your forms in, because the existing scheme finishes on the 6th of April.
You touched on a prepaid method also yesterday in the House of Keys. Do you want to elaborate on that? Is that like some sort of government credit card or something?
Ultimately, the vouchers, our intention is that the voucher system will fall by the wayside and be replaced by a card system. So somebody issued with a card would go to their sub-post office, have credit loaded up onto their card, and then be able to use it in any way they wish. It might be to collect cash or make purchases. But that work's going on at the moment.
So that's a brand new venture that's being looked into then?
Very, very closely, and the Post Office will be coming out with their proposals, as I understand it, in the very near future.
Oh, so you're going to tie in with the Post Office in that?
The Post Office will be bidding for this business, yes, and are very, very keen to succeed. And we'll see what their proposals are when they finally come out, which I think are imminent.
Government owned technically, the Post Office, so that's cosy, is it, to keep it within the government?
No, it's not. Let me make that absolutely clear. There are other competitors in the field interested in this work, and the Post Office's submissions will be viewed alongside those other options.
When you took on this job, did you ever imagine it would be where you are today? I mean, you're getting quite a lot of flack in there from certain members. I mean, a dangerous man was quite how did you take that when you heard that?
Well, not terribly seriously, because I always knew that this house was going to be difficult. I mean, I came into politics because I wanted to play my part, such that when I was eventually thrown out or retired, that I could look back and say, well, I've done my part to make sure the future for our children and grandchildren is secure. And there are a lot of difficult decisions to make, and it's not going to be easy in the next few years. It's going to be pretty tough. But behaving the way the North Douglas MHKs are behaving is a little bit like some sort of Alice in Wonderland experience, where they're running around shouting in a sort of semi-hysterical way off with their head. What people need is solid, serious debate about the issues, so that the people of the Isle of Man can make their own minds up about issues.
Is there anything more on this subject that we should be worried about? I mean, you've almost become known now as Mr. Bell's right-hand man, the tough guy, making the decisions. What else? It's making you very unelectable as well, isn't it, really? Do you feel that pressure at all?
No, not at all. The important thing is to do the right thing, that's all.
Where do we go from here?
In what way?
Just in general, what else have you gone up your sleeves? Well, I suppose you can't tell us yet, but are there going to be more cuts, more squeezes on the way that the Isle of Man's looking after its vulnerable people? Indeed,
we've got a really tremendous challenge ahead to make sure that the government becomes much more sensitive to true vulnerability, and no, not a day goes by without me concerning myself with how we're actually going to do that. And it is a huge challenge. Historically, government, to some extent, has protected itself from criticism by over-categorisation of individual need. And we end up in a situation where an individual then has to find his or her way into a system. And it's very, very easy to miss need. It's very easy for somebody not to be able to sit in the correct category, or to sit across a number of categories and not be seen at all. And the challenge for us is, how does government learn to identify individual vulnerable need? How does it start to recognise the individual? That's how big the challenge is. And we've embarked on the journey of trying to respond to that requirement, and it will take us some considerable time to achieve it. But the point that's always come across is we're a low tax area trying to provide what the UK provides probably, and maybe more in some cases. Is that still doable? You're absolutely right to focus on that fundamental principle, and we haven't seen it because we've had this surfeit of funds now for so many years, and politicians and officers in government have not been used to being tested against this quite specific challenge. And the challenge is, how do we stay a low taxation jurisdiction at the same time as deliver high quality services in welfare, health and social care, etc., education? What we have to do is learn to respond to individual need rather than be locked into a concept of universal benefits to all. So we have to focus down, focus down, focus down onto individual. No easy task, but we're determined to do it because we're such a small jurisdiction, 84,500, we have the opportunity to be a shining example of what really can be achieved and be an example to others as to what they might do. I feel slightly sorry for larger jurisdictions like the UK because they have huge challenges themselves, but they're such a large area, it's very difficult for them to be able to focus on personal need.
And finally, I mean, obviously the means testing, which you're obviously a great believer in, doesn't that cost a lot of money to administer in a sense? Do you actually save a lot of money by the time you take out all the extra civil servants required to do this sort of job?
Well, the assumption is it takes a lot more civil servants to do. As long as you keep means testing simple, and as long as progressively as we introduce it in each area, there's an understanding it has to migrate to a central system that's applicable, as it were, across the board, then we can make it work successfully. No easy challenge, but you know, if we don't do it, we're going to be stuck with universal benefits and a system which is paying out money, which we haven't got, to people who don't need it, and that's not acceptable.
Okay. Finally, the big upheaval I've mentioned last week to you again, I mean, there's obviously consolidation going on which will affect you greatly. I mean, you're still up for taking the lead of whatever the new department looks like?
Of course I am, yes. I mean, I think from my comments, I hope I've made it clear that I'm highly focused on social policy issues, and that will continue. As I think I said to you last time, social policy issues belong to us all right across government, wherever we're told to go.